Harvest of Malevolence is the third full-length album from death metal band Hyperdontia. This band is split between Turkey and Denmark and plays a style of death metal that has evolved between the first and second record, and then a sort of a shift in perspective in more recent, the last couple of years, where they've taken on more of a more direct and brutal style. So if we start out back with their first record, it had members of Frenolith, it had David Torturdad of Undergang up front, and it was much more focused on a Dead Congregation-esque atmospheric death metal sound. It was morbid, it was incantation-esque, and it was very much, like I said, an atmospheric feeling record, and that was changed quite a bit when they changed to vocalist Matthijs Freeborg, best known for Taphos and now Sulphurus more recently, who has a different vocal style. He's also a guitarist and brings in a different style to their work. And so that was kind of the halfway point between what is happening now and what they were doing before. So if you're looking for something that has some of that Dead Congregation-esque or Immolation-esque touch to it, but also want something that has also got a bit of Morbid Angel and riffcraft in there, I think that the guitarist Mustafa really does a great job of balancing that out for that change on that second record. And I rated it pretty highly back in 2021. It was a unique record, but it was also very classic front to back in most ways, and the way it was composed. I think that these fellows, that they get classic death metal better than most. They perform it better than most, and the riffs just kind of flow from them from project to project. So if you're a fan of Diabolizer or even more recently Engulfed, you probably want to check out Hyperdontia's discography, because it's all going to fit into your worldview if you liked those records for how brutal or atmospheric or classic they were. And I think the same could be said for Hyperdontia, but when their 2023 EP Deranged hit, things changed a little bit, and I think in a good way. But we'll cut to a clip here, hear what they're sounding like today. Deranged was one of my favorite releases of 2023 because it took on that early Suffocation-esque brutality, the vibe, and the aggression that that early brutal death metal brought when it upped the game for everyone. And that speed is missing from death metal today. The simplicity of getting a point out but not repeating the same riff 50 times in a row, and not finding so much novelty in all of your ideas is, again, it's kind of missing from what people are doing with old school death metal now. A lot of it is going through the motion. The way that they're putting these songs together, tightening up the riffs one after another, bursting through these songs, it feels like we're back to the era where people were again one-upping records like Erosion of Sanity or Monstrosity's second record, which was more brutal. It was more of a technical death metal album, and I think this record does verge on technical in terms of the way that it breaks out with its riffs and thrashes through them. Of course, the solos are more simple. The presentation is much more straightforward and tight, and a lot of the songs kind of circle back onto the riffs the way that New York brutal death metal kind of did early on. So there's a simplicity, an efficacy, like a charge to it that all kind of bursts out and hits one after another throughout the whole record. So if you liked what Deranged was doing, they're doing it for the whole record on this record. That's exactly what I wanted them to follow up with, and I think that makes Harvest of Malevolence more exciting, because they just punch through with that kind of perfectly kind of brutal, kind of classic old school early 90s death metal sound. And for me, that's a place that not a lot of bands can go and do effectively. It's a higher standard than most, and so my score reflects that. This is a very high recommendation. This is one of the best records of the month, and certainly really is worth the time you put into it, because it's very tightly written. It doesn't waste any of your time. It crushes through all of its songs, and if you're a riff person that just wants to hear the best that someone has in terms of intense rhythmic craft, this is a great example of it, one of the best around at the moment. So check it out yourself. It released on June 21st, and read my review if you'd like more of my thoughts.